the buyer did some ground penetrating radar in the courtyard just to as part of the environmental study, and discovered that there was an old forgotten cemetery underneath the ground in the courtyard.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer, with me excited to have Matt Jones. How you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Todd?
I'm doing fantastic. Just got back from a 3-day trip. We went and toured several of our existing buildings, that current deals that we've got going on. We've got a new property we closed on at the end of April. Met with the project manager. We have an in-house project manager that's helping coordinate the entire project. So we met with him, and I was able to kind of really just go through the property and some details and walk through some of the units that we wanted to walk through, talk with some contractors and make sure everything's on board and in line so we can get this project moving and off the ground. When you first buy a property and try to get this project going, it's just really important, in my opinion, to have really everything lined up. So we try to line everything as much as we can prior to acquisition. And then after acquisition, we're really just trying to get it in a position to where we can hit the go button. And once we hit the go button, we're off to the races. Materials there, everything's sourced, ready to go, and the contractors are hitting the ground running. So that's kind of the process we're in right now. And our contractors have now started. The day those contractors start, we don't want them to stop until the project's done. And that's why we do the groundwork up front. That's the key critical aspect that we want to make sure our project manager understands and he's prepared and ready for.
So what's the checklist of items that you have to look at in preparation for the acquisition?
Yeah, good question. So understanding and knowing your full scope, right? What are you going to actually be doing? So that's critical. Understanding, knowing your full scope, then lining up your contractors, right? Do you have the right people in place? Are you just going to use one general contractor that's going to kind of do it all? Or are you going to use a lot of subcontractors? We typically use a decent amount of subcontractors. So we've got a kind of general person that does a lot of the work within the units, but then we've got a roofer. We've got somebody doing the siding. We've got somebody doing the windows. We've got somebody doing the pavement. So there's a lot of other moving parts. We've got somebody doing the flooring, painting, all that kind of stuff. And so we line up, we make sure everybody's lined up for that. We create a schedule for them and expectations, how long it's going to take them to get things done. And then the other thing is you've got to get your materials sourced. So you have to understand what kind of cabinets you're going to use, what kind of flooring you're going to use, what kind of light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, etc. are you going to use, and then where are you going to get them from, and how much do you need? And so that's the detailed list that you want. So our project manager, Anthony, is going through these units, and he's completely, he's making sure we have complete, bill of materials, making sure our full scope for every unit, because every unit changes slightly, right? So we need to make sure we have a full bill of materials, we have a full detailed scope, all that kind of stuff. So it becomes easier as you go, but the first time, obviously these first dozen units that we're doing is going to take him the longest. From there, it's more of a checklist. He's already got everything set up. He needs to just delete items as they go or as needed, or add items back into it, whatever. So he's got his whole master source, and then he just goes, okay, these are the things we're doing on this unit.
And what kind of things need to be looked at during the walkthrough?
Are you talking like an initial walkthrough or the detailed walkthrough right now?
Detailed right now.
Yeah. Everything, right? So we're looking at all of the finer details of the project, or Anthony is. And so he's looking at our scope, and he's making sure that we're picking apart everything on the scope. And he's also looking for anything that needs to get done outside of the scope. So maybe there's some mold in a closet. Okay, well, where's that mold coming from? We want to first make sure that we know where the mold's coming from, and we want to put that on the list, right? Maybe there's a big crack in the ceiling, drywall, whatever it is. We're going to want to write that down into our scope. So I think really looking at having your full understanding of the scope, right? We're going to replace the cabinets. We're going to do new granite countertops. We're going to tile the backsplash, all that. That's pretty simple. We've got a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It's, 1,150 square feet. Boom. We know exactly the materials we're going to need for that. But then when we go and we walk that unit, we have to really dig into any details that might be outside of our normal scope. Or maybe we go, well, the previous owner replaced all the light fixtures and they're in great condition. We don't need to do those. So we have
How,
to take those off the list.
how are you keeping track of like which units need which items? Like, is it a paper to-do list, or do you have an app or Google Sheets?
Yeah, Google Sheets right now. There are some good apps out there that we're looking at, but right now, using Google Sheets, but because it's easy to communicate with everybody, and they don't have to have a different app.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that was great. We were able to really dive into some details. With Anthony, we looked at a few things that we hadn't looked at before that we're wanting to get done. For instance, the gutters. So this property has a courtyard in the middle, and a lot of water's coming off these roofs. And it doesn't have any subgrade units; they're all slab on grade. At the same time, we want to make sure water stays away from those units. We don't want them to get into these units. There's some drains going on, but the gutters are just spilling out, in some cases, just spilling out right directly to the foundation. And so, we talked about that. We want to get all these gutters running in directly into the drains. So we're going to bury all the gutters under in directly to the drains to get that water out of the courtyard. We're also going to take and cut back a lot of the trees to get more sunshine in. Sunshine on, it's good to have sun on the buildings. It keeps them from getting moldy. It keeps the moisture out of them. It also, again, we want to keep that courtyard nice and dry and good. We want to grow nice grass for the residents. And so we're going to cut things back. Vegetation in a lot of these buildings gets overgrown very quickly. As we're walking other properties, we're looking at a lot of properties right now, Matt. And that's one of the things we're doing at potential new acquisitions. In every single case, the landscaping is extremely overgrown. Not only does it not look attractive, but it causes damage to the buildings. And so we want to make sure we're trimming that back. We're taking the bushes that are at head height and we're bringing them down to more like knee height or slightly above that. We don't want these huge, trees or bushes. Some of them have to just get pulled out because they're so big. The trees, same thing. You get roots that crack foundations, that cause moisture problems, have squirrels and other, animals getting into the buildings because of them. So we want to make sure we're keeping that stuff clean and clear of the buildings.
And when you see that deferred landscaping, do you renegotiate with the current landscaping company, or do you just start afresh with a new one?
Yeah, so I guess it really depends. Can the current company handle it? And it's not necessarily. You might go, well, why would you even consider hiring them? They're not doing their job. Well, that's not true necessarily, because their job might be just to mow the lawn and trim back the bushes, but they're not given the scope to actually take them down to a certain level, right? So if it's a reputable company that we like and that we feel does a good job, we're going to use them. Otherwise, we're going to use our companies that we typically use that we have a good relationship with and understand what we're looking to do at these properties.
Okay. What are some of the surprises that you tend to find when you're doing the inspections of properties?
Boy, I mean, it can vary a whole heap of a lot. Um, I think some of the bigger things that we find are, man, I mean that varies so much. So that's really a difficult question to answer. But um, I think maybe the conditions not nearly as good as what we were told This, for instance, we looked at a property and it had been completely renovated, uh, top to bottom. At least that was the story, right? The story was it had been completely renovated top to bottom between 2017 and 2000. No, it was 2000. Sorry, 2019 and 2021. Um, and so you walk into that expecting nicely renovated units. You see some pictures and it shows a model unit and looks great. But then you walk in and you go, they did some renovation, but they also didn't do some renovation. Or, they left the carpet in the bedroom that's stained and nasty and has Kool-Aid marks on it, type of thing. That's really weird. Or, okay, they remodeled the interior units, but for instance, we had one property we looked at yesterday. Looked beautiful on the surface, but as you dug deeper, actually, I'll give you several examples. As you dug deeper on one of the units, there was mold on the corner, a lot of water staining. Huh. Well, what's that from, right? You remodeled the interior, but you've got some moisture issues happening on the exterior somewhere. You remodeled the interior, but you've got decks that are really just falling apart, right? So that was another thing. Overgrown landscaping, same type of thing. They had these porches that um, were in many cases starting to fail. They hadn't addressed some foundation issues from the porches that were sinking and causing the 3 stories of, uh, of of structure on top of it to start to move and adjust. So those are things that big surprises. Another building we looked at again had been fully remodeled. Well, then as we walked into it, we found out that sometimes, but other times they remodeled and left carpet in the living room and they said they had fully remodeled it. Well, that's partial remodel, right? Or the cabinets were left and they didn't replace the cabinets, they just painted them. Again, that's partial remodel. The bathrooms were done, but the showers were nasty, like mold, mismatched tiles, bathtubs that are peeling, that type of thing. And so sometimes what you're told isn't quite what you get, which is the value of getting into these units. And here's one more thing. I've been rambling on for a while, but here's one more thing is there's a big push to do hard earnest money day one with no early look or no look period. We do not do that. We won't do that. And the reason being is because of the things that I've just been telling you. We find these things. And what do you think a seller is going to have you see when you go do your original tour? The
Probably the
best
best
units or
units,
the worst?
best ones.
The best units, right? They're going to show you the best 3, 4 units, right? I walked a building. Again, this was the one that I said had been fully remodeled, and they only allowed us into 2 units. I asked and talked them into allowing us into a third unit, but that's 3 units out of over 200 units. Do you think I saw the best or the worst? I saw the best. I saw 2 model units and then another unit. They were doing a unit turnover and the new resident was moving in tomorrow, right? So I saw the best units. That's what you see. So if when you go and throw your $1 million or $500,000 or $200,000 worth of earnest money down and you're having it no contingency whatsoever, you're putting yourself at a big giant risk. We can't renegotiate, can't do anything. We're losing our earnest money. And we can't even walk away if the seller lied to us. And in many cases, they maybe aren't lying to us, but they're not really telling us the truth. And they might not even know the truth. They were told that everything has been remodeled.
Very interesting. And I think back a few years ago, there was a apartment complex in Tampa, and the buyer did some ground penetrating radar in the courtyard just to, as part of the environmental study, and discovered that there was an old forgotten cemetery underneath the ground in the courtyard. So then they had to renegotiate and
Wow.
exhume the bodies and move them and stuff.
Wow. Now that is definitely something that's a surprise. That's for sure. And I have not ran into dead body surprises. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I ran into some dead bugs, but not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things you're going to find, Matt. I think the biggest, obviously, is condition of the property that you get concerned about, and the other thing is the residents themselves, right? You expect that you've got a certain resident profile, and you find out that you weren't quite right. Of course, it's always nice when we find out in a pleasant surprise we've got better residents or we've got less work to do, but usually it's the opposite. We've got more work to do, or we've got worse residents than what we thought. And so that those just seem to be kind of the bigger ones. I looked at a property yesterday. We're doing due diligence on. Still, potentially, we'll go forward with this deal, but we need to look at again at our budget numbers. We need to run some stuff by our lender to figure out if we can actually do this deal. It's got siding that looked from the surface to be in good condition. It was just repainted. It's LP Smart Side. But as I looked closer, it is the LP Smart Side that had a class action lawsuit on it back in the 1980s. And that LP Smart Side is not very smart. And it is not a good product. It actually soaks up water and causes mold to happen behind the walls. And so I figured that out as started walking the property. Luckily, I've had experience with that material before when I was doing remodeling construction in the summers through, so when I was a teacher. So luckily I had experience with that. Had I not, I would never have known. And quite frankly, the people that are walking with me had no clue. And so if those are some important, things to be able to point out and to be able to discover as you're walking properties. You know,
And I think it's not just looking at the properties that you can find surprises. It's the financials. If you see a property that has,
that's huge too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For example, if you see the water bill is much higher than maybe some of the surrounding apartment complexes, then like, oh, there might be an underground leak that's going on.
Yeah, or like we've discovered in Little Rock, and I mentioned it on the podcast. And if you haven't heard it, go back. I don't know, Matt, how many episodes that was, but a couple months ago, probably 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Maybe it's been a little bit. No, it's been probably longer
I
now. It's
think,
been more
yeah,
than six
longer.
months. But yeah, we found that the seller was fraudulating their books. Look for inconsistencies in the books. And just because you're buying from a quote unquote reputable seller who you think is a reputable seller doesn't mean that's the case. This person would, on the surface, you would assume is a very reputable seller, but that doesn't mean that's the case. And so you want to look for any kind of anomalies that you can as you go.
Yeah, so many details to cover in walking the property and looking at the paperwork that it's easy if you just glaze over or take the information that you're getting from the broker or the seller at face value, then you really might get screwed over.
Yep. Yeah, we walked a property that looks like it's in a fantastic location on the map, but I didn't know like the part of town it's in is a great part of town. The location appears to be fantastic, but as you actually drive the property and go to that property, the duplexes, there was a bunch, it was surrounded by a bunch of duplexes or all of these kind of just old, outdated, not very well kept duplexes, rundown cars. Just like, great, this is not the neighborhood I thought. Now, again, around it, very close to it, is A minus, B plus type area. But this general area, as you kind of walk around and feel out the neighborhood, it feels more like a B minus, even C
Mm.
plus type neighborhood. And so that makes a big difference. The property we were looking at is the gem of the neighborhood. So I can't assume that I'm going to attract the best residents if the residents surrounding my property are going to be scaring them all away.
Yeah, I mean, you can fix up the property, but it's much harder to fix up the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, you can't fix up the neighborhood. So just like in any city, every city has great neighborhoods and not so great neighborhoods, but even within the great neighborhoods, a lot of times we might have a smaller area that's just where you maybe don't want to be. It's not like I wouldn't call this area dangerous necessarily. It's just more run down and not what you would expect.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah. So yeah, but anyway, so it was a great trip. We try to incorporate as much as we can in there. Of course, you only have so much time, but really, I think it's so valuable to get on site, to be talking with contractors, to be talking with your on-site staff. The other thing we try to really do is make sure we're leading our culture, right? And so this time we didn't talk too much about culture, but we want to make sure we're talking about our culture, what we expect, how we want our residents to be treated, how we want to be showing up every single day. We want to make sure that our on-site actually knows that and understands what we're looking to achieve. We can't just assume that the property management company is feeding that information to them. So I think that's really important too, is pushing your culture to the contractors, to the on-site managers, to your maintenance staff. One of my goals is that at the end of every single day, we have 0 work orders for our maintenance staff, that they get through every single work order every single day. And that we want to make sure they understand that, and they understand why. That's so our residents are being taken care of. They're paying a lot of great money. This is a lot of money to our residents that they're paying for their rent. We want to make sure that we are showing them the respect and dignity that they deserve.
Yeah, and residents notice that. Like if you're really responsive to their needs, and they feel like they're being listened to and appreciated and cared for.
Yeah, the number one reason why residents move out is maintenance,
Hmm.
lack thereof. Right. It was a great trip. Got to meet with some brokers that we haven't been able to see for a while, so it's always good. Enjoy hanging out with. So we met quite a few brokers. Talked to them about what we're trying to achieve. And, it was, like I said, meeting, walking properties, always good. So
Very good.
cool.
So I want to mention, so this podcast is coming out on Wednesday, May 25th. And so tomorrow, May 26th, we're going to be having a networking happy hour at Summit Brewery at 5:30 p.m. So in the show notes, I'll include a link to how you can get signed up for that.
Awesome, man. Yeah, look forward to it. That's it's going to be fun. Last time we had a great turnout,
Mhm.
and I expect even better turnout this time. So everybody who is in the area who wants to come to that, would love to see you there.
Yep, sounds good.
Cool. Well, Matt, anything else?
No, that's it for today.
All right. You have a fantastic rest of the day. Make every day Saturday.
Thank you. You too.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. But your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.